Rain fell hard on the steel city of Zoreth. The drops were heavy, almost like tiny hammers striking metal roofs and glowing streets. Blue lightning flashed across a dark green sky, and towers of black glass shone in the storm. Ships drifted high above, their engines humming like distant thunder. Captain Ryan Hale walked alone through the palace gates. He wore a plain gray flight suit, torn at the sleeves from his last mission. His boots splashed through puddles that reflected the strange alien lights of the city. Inside his chest, his heart beat like a drum, but his face stayed calm. He was the only human in this empire, and tonight he would stand before the Empress herself. The palace of Anoran glittered like a mountain of stars. Walls of crystal glass reached toward the storm, and silver flames burned in tall lamps. Guards lined the hall, their armor black and sharp, their eyes bright with green fire. Each guard was twice as strong as a human soldier, but none of them spoke as Ryan passed. They only watched with quiet smiles, as if sure he would soon fail. At the far end of the great hall sat Empress Serica. She rested on a high throne made of living vines that glowed faint gold. Her long dark hair shimmered with tiny sparks of light, and her emerald eyes held the cold shine of a blade. Jewels floated around her shoulders, turning slowly in the air like silent moons. Her presence filled the room, heavy and proud. Ryan stopped 10 steps from the throne. Water dripped from his jacket onto the marble floor. He felt every gaze on him, the weight of 100 alien soldiers ready to laugh. The Empress tilted her head, studying the lone human. "You are Captain Ryan Hale of Earth," she said. Her voice was soft but sharp, like music played on steel. "You come here to prove the strength of your species." Ryan nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty." Serica leaned forward slightly. "Humans are fragile. Weak of bone, short of breath. Your people hide behind machines and luck. Why should I believe you are more than clever animals?" A slow smile touched her lips. "You will break within an hour." The hall filled with quiet laughter. The guards whispered to one another, their voices like hissed wind. Ryan heard every word but kept his eyes on the Empress. "I will not break," he said. His voice was steady, low but strong enough to carry across the hall. Serica's smile faded. "You are brave to speak so," she said, "but courage without strength is nothing. Prove me wrong if you can." Before Ryan could answer, a deep alarm cut through the laughter. A sharp metallic tone echoed from the walls, rising and falling like a dying star. The floating jewels around the Empress flashed red. Every guard turned toward the doors. "What is this?" Serica demanded. A soldier ran forward and knelt. "My Empress, unknown ships have entered the lower city. Defense walls are breached. We are under attack." The great hall trembled. Dust fell from the high crystal ceiling. Outside, a new thunder rolled, closer, louder, more violent than the storm. Serica stood, her gown of black silk swirling like smoke. "Seal the palace," she ordered. The guards rushed to obey, but another explosion shook the floor. Far down the hall, the giant doors burst inward with a scream of twisted metal. Through the smoke came shapes, dark, heavy, moving fast. Red lights burned in their helmets, and weapons glowed like molten stone. They were not Anoran soldiers. They were invaders. Ryan stepped forward before the guards could react. His eyes narrowed, scanning the enemy ranks. He reached for the sidearm on his belt, but it was gone, taken when he entered the palace. The nearest invader fired. A blast of blue fire shot toward the throne. Ryan moved without thought. He grabbed a fallen guard's spear and swung it like a shield. The energy strike hit the metal shaft and sparked into a shower of light. Serica gasped, stunned. This human had moved faster than her own soldiers. "Stay behind me," Ryan said calmly, his eyes never leaving the enemy. The Empress blinked. No one had ever spoken to her that way, not even her highest generals. But Ryan's voice carried no fear, only command. The invaders roared and advanced. Ryan planted his feet, spear raised, ready for the fight of his life. And for the first time, Empress Serica wondered if perhaps this human was not weak at all. The great hall shook like a living drum as the invaders poured through the broken doors. Flashes of blue fire lit the crystal walls, and shadows leapt across the ceiling like wild spirits. Smoke rolled across the floor in thick gray waves. The smell of burned metal and hot plasma filled the air. Ryan tightened his grip on the long black spear he had taken from the fallen guard. The shaft was heavy, but it felt alive in his hands. He placed his body between Empress Serica and the enemy, his eyes steady, his breath slow. Every muscle in his arms hummed with tension. The first invader charged. It was a giant alien soldier, tall as two men, its armor black as a starless night. A red visor burned across its helmet like a single angry eye. The creature raised a glowing blade and slashed downward. Ryan moved quick. He shifted sideways and drove the spear upward. The tip struck the invader's chest plate with a loud crack. The force knocked the alien back a step. It hissed in pain, a sound like steam escaping from a broken pipe. Two more enemies rushed in. Ryan spun the spear in a tight arc, blocking their shots. Bolts of blue light bounced off the shaft, lighting his face in sharp flashes. He ducked low and kicked the first soldier's knee. The giant fell hard, shaking the marble floor. Serica watched, her emerald eyes wide. She had seen countless warriors fight, but none moved like this human. His movements were simple, but there was a sharp, fearless rhythm to them, like a storm dancing across the sea. Around them, the Empress's own guards joined the battle, their black armor ringing with each clash of metal. But the invaders kept coming, 10, 20, maybe more. The hall became a storm of sparks and screams. A blast of plasma exploded near the throne, throwing Serica back. Ryan turned fast, catching her before she hit the ground. Her hair smelled faintly of silver smoke. "Stay low," he said, steady but urgent. Serica had never been told what to do. Yet she stayed close, her heart racing in a way she had never known. Another wave of soldiers entered the hall. Ryan's mind worked like a machine. Too many. Too strong. They needed to move. He spotted a side corridor, narrow, dim, leading deeper into the palace. "Follow me," he said. He guided Serica toward the passage, striking at enemies as they advanced. One soldier leapt at him from the side. Ryan pivoted and slammed the spears but into the alien's jaw. Bone cracked. The creature collapsed with a heavy thud. Serica kept close behind, her long cloak trailing through dust and blood. The corridor ahead flickered with red emergency lights, casting their path in a dark crimson glow. A sudden roar shook the ground. From the shadows at the end of the corridor came a massive shape. It was twice as tall as the others, its armor glowing with strange orange lines. Its eyes burned like molten fire. The beast lifted a huge plasma cannon. Ryan shoved Serica against the wall just as a bolt of searing light ripped past them, melting a column of stone. Heat washed over his back like an open furnace. He glanced around quickly. No weapons but the spear. No cover but the broken columns. The beast charged, footsteps pounding like falling meteors. Ryan crouched low. "When it strikes," he whispered to Serica, "run left." Serica opened her mouth to argue, but his eyes, sharp, unshaken, stopped her words. The beast lunged. Ryan rolled forward, sliding under the huge cannon. He drove the spear upward with all his strength. The tip pierced the beast's glowing chest plate. A scream of metal and fury filled the corridor. The creature swung a massive arm, knocking Ryan into the wall. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he did not let go. He twisted the spear deeper. Blue fire spilled from the wound like liquid lightning. The beast staggered, roaring. Ryan yanked the spear free and leapt back. The creature crashed to the floor, shaking the ground until dust rained from the ceiling. For a moment, there was only silence, broken only by the sound of Ryan's heavy breathing. Serica stepped forward slowly. She looked at the fallen beast, then at the human who had brought it down. You fought like 1,000 warriors, she said, her voice low with wonder. Ryan wiped sweat and blood from his brow. We have to keep moving, he said. They won't stop. Serica nodded, still staring at him. No one had ever spoken to her with such quiet command. They moved quickly through the corridor, deeper into the palace's hidden passages. The air grew cooler, heavy with the scent of old stone. Behind them the echoes of battle faded, replaced by the distant howl of the storm outside. For the first time in her life, Empress Serica felt something unfamiliar, trust in a human. The hidden corridor twisted downward like a dark vein under the palace. Moist air clung to the walls, and the sound of dripping water echoed in the silence. Ryan held the black spear in one hand, his other arm tight against a bruised rib. Every step sent a dull ache through his chest, but he kept moving. The Empress followed close, her long cloak brushing the wet stone. Behind them, faint explosions rumbled. The battle in the great hall was still raging, but the noise grew softer as they descended. Ryan slowed his pace and listened. Only the steady drip of water answered. Serica's emerald eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. You are hurt, she said quietly. Her voice, once sharp and commanding, now sounded almost gentle. I'm fine, Ryan replied. He wasn't. Blood warmed his sleeve, but he pushed the pain aside. Where does this tunnel end? It leads to the old city beneath Zoreth, Serica said. No one uses it now. Long ago it was a trade route, but storms flooded it. Few even remember it exists. Good, Ryan said. That means the enemy won't find us fast. They reached a fork in the passage. Faint red lights blinked along the left path. The right path was pure black. Serica hesitated. Left leads toward the river vents. Right leads to the forgotten bridge. She frowned. The bridge is dangerous. Ryan studied both directions. The red lights worried him, someone could track them there. We take the bridge, he said. They turned into the darkness. The air grew colder. The tunnel widened, its ceiling lost in shadow. Old iron pipes lined the walls, dripping rusty water into shallow pools. Their footsteps splashed softly. After several minutes they entered a vast cavern. Ryan stopped and raised the spear, eyes scanning the gloom. Before them stretched a bridge of ancient stone, arching over a wide pit of glowing magma. The orange light shimmered like a living fire lake, casting hot waves against their faces. The bridge looked old, cracked in many places, but it was their only path forward. Serica drew closer to him. This place is forbidden, she whispered. Legends say creatures live in the deep heat. Ryan stepped onto the first stone. It groaned under his weight but held. Legends or not, we cross. They moved carefully across the narrow bridge. Steam hissed from the molten pit below, carrying the sharp scent of sulfur. Drops of sweat ran down Ryan's forehead despite the cold tunnel air. Halfway across, a distant clang echoed from behind. Ryan turned sharply. In the dark mouth of the tunnel, shapes moved, dark, tall, and fast. Scouts, Ryan said. He tightened his grip on the spear. They found us. Serica's eyes widened. How? The hall was still. Doesn't matter. Ryan scanned the bridge. There was no cover. The enemy would reach them in moments. The first shadow stepped onto the stone, red visor glowing. More followed, their weapons sparking blue. Ryan breathed deep. Keep moving. Don't stop. They advanced carefully, but the bridge shuddered as a loud roar rose from below. The stone trembled under their feet. Serica froze. What was that? A second roar, louder, shook loose rocks from the cavern roof. From the molten pit, something enormous stirred. Bubbles of fire burst like small suns. A massive head rose from the glow, skin black as obsidian, eyes burning orange. A creature of the deep. It climbed onto the side of the bridge, molten heat dripping from its claws. Its teeth shone like molten blades. The air filled with a stench of ash and burning metal. Ryan stepped in front of Serica. "Run when I say." The beast lunged, shaking the bridge. Stone cracked under its weight. Ryan dashed forward and thrust the spear into its forearm. The creature howled, a sound like thunder and grinding rock. Its claws swung wide, smashing a chunk of bridge into the magma below. Serica staggered but kept her balance. Ryan pulled the spear free and struck again, aiming for the glowing eye. The beast recoiled, its roar echoing through the cavern. The enemy soldiers had stopped at the tunnel entrance, stunned by the monster. But their pause wouldn't last. Ryan shouted over the noise, "Now! Run!" Serica obeyed. Her black cloak whipped behind her as she sprinted toward the far side. Ryan followed, the creature thrashing just behind. The beast lunged once more, claws scraping the stone near Ryan's heels. He leapt forward, landing hard but steady. They reached the far end just as another section of bridge collapsed into the molten pit with a fiery splash. Ryan spun, spear ready, but the beast had slipped back into the lava, roaring in fury. The remaining enemy scouts fired across the gap, but their shots fell short. The bridge was now broken in the middle, a fiery moat separating them. Ryan exhaled, chest heaving. For a brief moment, silence returned, only the hiss of molten rock below. Serica turned to him, her face lit by the orange glow. "You risked death again," she said softly. "Still alive," Ryan replied with a faint smile. "But we're not done." She studied him, her eyes bright with something he couldn't name. Perhaps respect. Perhaps more. Ryan looked toward the next tunnel, a dark arch carved in ancient stone. "We keep moving," he said. "They'll find another way around." Serica nodded, her voice quiet. "Yes. But Captain, you are not like any human I have ever met." Ryan simply adjusted his grip on the spear and started forward. There was no time for talk. Beyond the dark arch lay more danger, and he would face it all to keep the Empress alive. The tunnel beyond the broken bridge was narrow and cold. Ryan led the way, spear balanced in his hands, every step echoing like a soft drum. Moist air tasted of rust and smoke. Behind them the molten pit hissed, fading into silence. Serica followed close, her dark cloak brushing the damp stone. The soft glow from her jeweled crown cast pale green light on the walls. Ryan glanced back once to be sure she kept up. Her eyes met his, calm but sharp. "You still bleed," she said quietly. "I'll live," Ryan replied. The cut on his shoulder throbbed, but he kept his pace steady. "We need distance before those scouts find another way across." Far behind, a faint metallic clang echoed, one, then another. Ryan's jaw tightened. "They're moving again," he said. "They'll look for a side route." Serica frowned. "These tunnels are a maze. But some old shafts lead to the surface." "Then they'll use them," Ryan said. "We keep moving." The path sloped upward. A low vibration rumbled through the ground, distant engines, faint but steady. Ryan paused and tilted his head. "That's not the storm," he whispered. Serica listened, her eyes narrowing. "It sounds like hovercraft, maybe 3. Ryan exhaled. "They brought flyers underground." "Smart." They quickened their steps. Soon the tunnel widened into a forgotten maintenance bay. Ancient machines lay broken, their panels coated in dust. Pipes dripped slow streams of dark water into shallow pools. Suddenly a sharp beam of red light swept across the far wall. Ryan shoved Serica behind a fallen column. A hover drone glided silently into the chamber, its sensor blinking. The drone paused, scanning. Its red eye brightened. Ryan grabbed a fist-sized chunk of rusted metal. He hurled it into the far corner. The clang echoed loud and sharp. The drone swiveled and zipped toward the noise. Ryan sprang up, dashed forward, and thrust the spear into its central core. Sparks exploded in a white flash. The machine collapsed, hissing. Serica stepped out from cover, eyes wide. "You are fast," she said. "Lucky," Ryan replied. "Let's move before more come." The next tunnel bent sharply and split in two. From the left passage came a faint draft of cool air. Ryan felt it on his cheek and pointed. "That way leads outside." They hurried on, but a sudden screech echoed behind them, metal scraping stone. The enemy scouts had found a route. Footsteps pounded, closer every second. Ryan turned to Serica. "When we reach daylight, stay low and head for cover. I'll keep them busy." Serica's eyes flashed. "You will not fight alone." Ryan gave a faint grin. "You're the Empress. Your people need you alive." Before she could answer, a volley of plasma fire streaked through the tunnel, burning the air. Sparks showered the stone walls. Ryan shoved Serica forward. "Run!" They sprinted down the twisting passage. Behind them the enemy roared, their boots hammering the ground. The tunnel opened suddenly onto a wide cavern lit by shafts of pale daylight filtering from cracks high above. Thin waterfalls spilled from the rocks, misting the air with cool spray. A natural stone bridge stretched across the cavern to a broken stairway that led toward the surface. Ryan slowed only to glance around. No guards. No easy ambush. "Keep going," he said. They reached the bridge just as the first enemy soldier burst from the tunnel behind them. Blue fire bolts sliced the air. One struck the rock near Ryan's feet, showering him with hot fragments. He spun and threw a loose stone with all his strength. It hit an enemy visor, knocking the soldier back a step. More soldiers surged onto the cavern floor below, their armor glinting in the faint light. Ryan and Serica raced across the bridge. Halfway across, a blast struck the stone rail, sending chunks into the waterfall below. Ryan cursed under his breath and tightened his grip on the spear. At the far side of the bridge they reached the broken stairway. Parts of it had crumbled, leaving gaps over a deep drop. Daylight glowed faintly above, the promise of open air. Ryan tested the first gap with a quick jump and landed steady. "Your turn," he said. Serica leapt lightly, her cloak fluttering like a black flame. For a moment she almost slipped, but Ryan caught her wrist and pulled her safe. Behind them the enemy shouted and fired again. Bolts ricocheted off stone, sizzling in the mist. They climbed higher, leaping over missing steps, until a final jagged hole blocked their way. Above it, a wide crack in the cavern ceiling opened to the stormy sky. Ryan crouched, hands ready. "Jump, I'll push you up." Serica placed her foot in his clasped hands. With a strong lift, Ryan hurled her upward. She caught the edge of the crack and pulled herself onto the ledge. Ryan leapt next, grabbing her outstretched hand as plasma blasts scorched the wall behind him. Together they scrambled onto a flat shelf of rock open to the night. Cold wind lashed their faces. The storm above rumbled, clouds lit with violet lightning. Far below, enemy shouts echoed like angry ghosts. Serica knelt, breathing hard. "They will climb after us." "They'll try," Ryan said, scanning the jagged landscape. Dark spires of rock rose around them, slick with rain but offering cover. He turned to her. "We keep moving. Find higher ground. Maybe reach the city outskirts." Serica met his gaze. Rain streaked her pale face, but her eyes were fierce. "You saved me again, Captain. I will not forget." Ryan gave a small nod, rain dripping from his hair. No time for thanks. We're still hunted. Lightning flashed, turning the rocky cliffs into silver spears. Together they disappeared into the storm, the sound of enemy pursuit fading but never gone. Cold rain swept across the jagged cliffs as Ryan and Empress Serica climbed higher. Wind howled through the stone spires, carrying the distant echo of alien shouts. Lightning flashed violet across the sky, turning the wet rocks into brief silver flames. Ryan led the way along a narrow ledge. Each step sent small stones tumbling into the dark valley below. His shoulder throbbed where the beast's claw had struck earlier, but he pushed the pain aside. Behind him, Serica followed, her black cloak whipping in the storm. "They will not stop," she said over the roar of the wind. "They'll have to," Ryan replied, scanning the jagged horizon. "We need high ground. A place to fight on our terms." Far below, faint red lights moved like glowing insects, enemy scouts climbing after them. Their voices carried upward, harsh and metallic. Ryan spotted a rocky ridge ahead. A natural bridge of stone stretched from the cliff to a flat plateau beyond. At the center of the plateau stood an ancient watchtower, half collapsed but still tall. "That tower," Ryan said. "We make our stand there." Serica nodded without a word. The stone bridge was slick with rain. Ryan stepped carefully, testing each foothold. Halfway across, the wind gusted hard, nearly knocking them sideways. Serica swayed, but Ryan caught her arm and steadied her. They reached the plateau just as a deep, mechanical roar rose from below. Ryan turned and saw a large shape lift from the mist, a black hovercraft with scarlet lights. It climbed fast, carrying enemy soldiers. "They're closer than I thought," Ryan said. He guided Serica toward the old tower. The structure leaned like a tired giant, but the doorway stood open. Inside, the air was dry and cold. Dust covered the stone floor, and broken stairs spiraled upward. Ryan checked the walls, strong enough to shelter them for a short fight. "Stay near the center," he told Serica. "I'll hold the entrance." Serica stepped closer. "You cannot fight all of them alone." Ryan gave a faint smile. "Watch me." The first enemy soldier appeared at the plateau's edge, visor glowing red. Ryan gripped the black spear and waited. The soldier charged across the bridge, plasma blade raised. Ryan lunged forward, the spear slicing a clean arc. The enemy fell with a harsh cry, armor sparking. 2 more soldiers followed. Ryan spun, blocking their strikes, each movement sharp and fast. The storm howled through the tower doorway, carrying the clash of metal. Serica watched, her heart racing. Every motion of the human was precise, no wasted effort, no fear. Outside, the hovercraft landed on the far side of the bridge. More soldiers poured out, 5, maybe 6. Their weapons burned blue in the dark. Ryan stepped back into the tower, forcing them to enter one at a time. The narrow doorway worked in his favor. The first soldier rushed in. Ryan drove the spear through its chest plate, then pulled it free with a twist. Another followed, swinging a glowing axe. Ryan ducked, the blade whistling past, and struck low, sweeping the alien's legs. Sparks rained across the dusty floor. But the enemy kept coming. Ryan's breathing grew heavy, his wounded shoulder screaming with each strike. Serica raised her hands. Green light flickered around her fingers, a faint energy Ryan had not seen before. "Stay back," he warned. She ignored him. Ancient Anoran symbols lit across her palms. A sudden wave of force rippled outward, knocking 2 soldiers back across the threshold. Ryan glanced at her in surprise. "I am not helpless," Serica said, her eyes blazing. Outside, thunder rolled like a giant drum. The enemy leader stepped onto the bridge. He was taller than the others, armored in black steel streaked with crimson light. A massive plasma blade rested across his shoulders. The soldiers around him stepped aside as he advanced. Ryan steadied his spear. The leader's voice rumbled deep and cold. Human. Step aside. The Empress belongs to us. Ryan planted his feet. She stays with me. The leader charged, blade swinging in a wide, deadly arc. Ryan met the strike with the spear, sparks exploding as metal clashed with plasma. The force drove him back a step, but he held firm. The leader attacked again, faster, stronger. Ryan dodged, the edge of the blade slicing the air by inches. He countered with a quick thrust to the giant's side, but the armor absorbed most of the blow. Rain pounded through the doorway, slickening the stone floor. Ryan's muscles burned. The leader pressed forward, each swing heavier than the last. Serica raised her glowing hands again, sending a surge of green energy toward the enemy, but the leader deflected it with a snarl. Ryan seized the moment. He ducked under the massive blade and drove the spear upward with all his strength. The tip pierced a weak point beneath the leader's chest plate. A roar shook the tower as the giant stumbled back. Ryan twisted the spear and yanked it free. The enemy collapsed to the floor, armor sparking violently. The remaining soldiers froze. Their leader lay motionless, blue smoke rising from the wound. One by one, they backed away, retreating across the bridge into the storm. Within moments, only the sound of rain and distant thunder remained. Ryan leaned on the spear, breathing hard. His arms trembled with exhaustion. Serica stepped forward, her emerald eyes bright. "You fought like 10 armies," she said softly. "You saved me again." Ryan managed a tired grin. "Still standing. That's what matters." Serica placed a glowing hand on his wounded shoulder. Warm light spread through his muscles, easing the pain. "You are more than I believed," she said. "More than any legend." Ryan looked out across the stormy horizon. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll regroup." Serica nodded. "But tonight the Anoran Empire has witnessed the strength of a single human." The storm eased to a cold drizzle as dawn's first gray light spread across the jagged plateau. Broken clouds drifted like dark ships above the mountains. Ryan stood at the tower's doorway, black spear leaning against his shoulder, watching the horizon. The enemy hovercraft had vanished into the mist, but he kept scanning for any sign of movement. Inside the crumbling tower, Empress Serica sat near a cracked stone wall, her cloak wrapped tight. She watched the human soldier with quiet eyes that glowed faint green in the weak light. For the first time in many hours, no sound of pursuit echoed from the cliffs. Ryan finally turned toward her. "They pulled back," he said. "But they'll be back with more." Serica nodded. "They will not accept defeat. My enemies believe they own this empire now." Her voice was calm, but Ryan heard the weight behind it. He moved closer, wincing as his bruised shoulder protested. "We need to reach your loyal forces. Do you have a safe route?" Serica closed her eyes for a moment, as if mapping the land in her mind. "There is an ancient signal tower 2 ridges east. If we reach it, I can call my hidden guard. But the climb is long, and they will hunt us." Ryan glanced at the black spear and gave a faint grin. "Then we move fast." They left the ruined watchtower and began the descent down the opposite side of the plateau. Rain-soaked stone made every step slippery. The wind carried a thin, metallic smell of scorched metal from last night's battle. After an hour, the cliffs gave way to a narrow valley lined with silver-leaf trees. Morning light filtered through mist, painting the trunks in soft gold. For a brief moment, the war seemed far away. Serica slowed, her gaze drifting over the quiet forest. "This place was once a sanctuary," she said. "My ancestors came here to speak with the stars." Ryan studied her profile, lit by the pale glow of dawn. "You sound like you miss it." "I do," she admitted. "Power changes a person. But today, you remind me what honor is." Ryan looked ahead again. "I just did what anyone should do." Serica tilted her head. Not anyone. Many would have left me to die. Even some of my own kind. The piece shattered with a sudden crack of branches. Ryan spun, spear raised. 3 enemy scouts emerged from the mist, their red visors glowing like coals. Down! Ryan barked. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, burning holes in the silver leaves. Ryan shoved Serica behind a thick tree and leapt forward. The first scout fired again, but Ryan's spear struck the weapon, sending it clattering across the ground. A sharp kick to the chest knocked the alien backward. The second scout rushed from the side. Ryan pivoted, swinging the spear in a wide arc. The blow cracked against the scout's helmet, sparks flying. The third soldier aimed carefully at Serica. Ryan lunged, blocking the shot with the spear's shaft. The bolt scorched his arm, the heat biting deep. With a quick thrust, he drove the spear into the soldier's chest plate. The alien fell without a sound. Serica stepped out, eyes blazing with green light. Her hands glowed as she traced symbols in the air. A soft hum grew to a sharp pulse. The remaining scout stumbled back, stunned by a sudden wave of energy. Ryan finished the fight with a swift strike. The last soldier collapsed into the wet grass. Breathing hard, Ryan wiped rain from his face. "That's getting old," he said. Serica moved closer and touched his burned arm. Warm green light flowed from her palm, easing the pain. "You fight as if death means nothing," she whispered. Ryan met her gaze. "Death means nothing compared to letting you fall." Her eyes widened at his words, but she said nothing. They continued east until the silver forest thinned and the ground rose again into black stone ridges. The sky brightened as the storm drifted away, revealing twin suns pushing above the horizon. At last they reached the ancient signal tower, a tall, spiral spire of weathered crystal rising from the rock. Its surface shimmered faintly with old energy. Serica approached the base and placed her hands on a faded control plate. Runes lit under her touch, glowing bright emerald. "I will call my guard," she said. Ryan stood watch, scanning the distant valley for more enemies. A low hum built within the tower, growing into a soft chord that vibrated through the ground. Above them, a beam of green light shot into the morning sky. Serica stepped back, breathing deeply. "It is done. My loyal fleet will see the signal." Ryan lowered the spear slightly. "Good. Let's hope they're quick." For a long moment they stood in silence, the rising suns washing the ridge in pale gold. Wind carried the faint scent of rain and warm stone. Serica turned to him. "Captain Ryan Hale," she said, her voice softer than he had ever heard. "When we first met, I said humans were weak. I believed it with all my heart." Ryan gave a small shrug. "You were half right. We break easy. But we don't quit." Serica stepped closer until her eyes met his. "In one night you have defended me again and again. You fought when my own guards fled. You risked your life for mine with no promise of reward." Ryan looked out at the brightening sky. "Someone had to stand their ground." "You chose to stand," she said. "That is strength I did not understand. You are not weak. Your people are not weak." Ryan felt the weight of her words, heavier than the spear in his hand. Serica placed a hand gently on his uninjured shoulder. "You have changed the way I see your kind, and the way I see myself." Ryan managed a tired smile. "Let's get you home first. Then we can talk about changing worlds." Serica's eyes shone in the twin sunrise. "Yes. But know this, Captain, today the Anoran Empire owes its future to one human who would not yield." Above them the signal beam burned brighter, a promise of rescue and a silent witness to the moment they both understood. The line between human and legend had already blurred, the twin suns climbed higher, flooding the black ridges with soft gold. The signal beam from the crystal tower still blazed against the pale sky, a silent call to every loyal ship of the Anoran Empire. Ryan stood at the edge of the ridge, spear in hand, scanning the distant horizon for any sign of movement. Behind him, Empress Serica watched the sunrise. Her dark hair caught the light, shining like a river of ink. For a brief moment the world seemed peaceful, but Ryan kept his eyes sharp. He knew the enemy would not surrender easily. A faint hum reached his ears first. Moments later, 3 silver shapes broke through the morning clouds, sleek Anoran airships answering the ancient signal. Their engines sang a low, steady note that grew louder as they descended. "They come," Serica said softly. Ryan gave a small nod. "Let's hope they're friendly." The ship circled once, then lowered onto a flat stretch of rock. Green landing lights cut through the mist. A squad of armored soldiers emerged, their black armor trimmed in bright silver. At their head walked a tall Anoran commander with a bright emerald crest on his helmet. The commander knelt before the Empress. "My ruler," he said. "We feared you lost." Serica's voice carried the calm strength of command. "I live, thanks to this human." She turned toward Ryan, her emerald eyes proud. "Captain Ryan Hale fought beside me when others fled." The soldiers looked at the human with surprise and respect. They boarded the largest ship. Inside, smooth walls glowed with gentle blue light, and the air smelled faintly of star metal. Serica led Ryan to the command deck where wide windows opened to the endless sky. As the ship rose, Ryan saw the mountains shrink below and the crystal tower fade into a thin green spark. The city of Zorith lay far in the distance, scarred from the night's battle but still standing. Serica stepped to the center of the deck and touched a glowing panel. A circle of light appeared around her, and a deep chime sounded. From hidden speakers a dozen voices spoke at once, her council calling from across the empire. Holographic figures flickered to life, elders, generals, ministers, their faces lined with worry. One elder bowed. "My Empress, the rebels claim you are dead. They have seized parts of the capital. What are your orders?" Serica straightened, her cloak falling like a dark wave. Her eyes swept across the gathered images. "Listen well," she said, her voice ringing clear. "I live. The enemy failed. And I return not alone but with proof of a greater truth." She raised a hand toward Ryan. "This human stood when others ran. He fought our foes, shielded me with his own body, and defeated the rebel leader. I once said humans were weak. I was wrong." The council members shifted in surprise. "Strength," Serica continued, "is not only muscle or armor. Strength is to protect when all seems lost. To stand when fear whispers to fall. In Captain Ryan Hale, I have seen strength that equals, even surpasses, our own." Ryan felt every eye turn to him. He shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Serica's voice grew firm. "From this day, the people of Earth will be recognized as true allies of the Anoran Empire. Any who call them weak will answer to me." The elders bowed their heads in agreement, their holograms flickering like distant stars. The council meeting ended. The light circle faded, leaving only the soft hum of the ship's engines. Serica turned to Ryan, a small smile touching her lips. "You have changed the heart of an empire in a single night." Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. "Didn't plan on politics. Just didn't want you dead." Her smile widened. "And that is exactly why you succeeded." The ship glided over the city of Zorith. Below, smoke curled from shattered towers, but Anoran loyalists moved through the streets, regaining control. Citizens looked up and pointed as the Empress's ship passed overhead. Serica opened a channel to the entire city. Her voice carried across every speaker and every skyscreen. "People of Anoran," she declared, "your Empress lives. The rebels who claimed our throne are broken. And I tell you now, a human, yes, a human, stood when our own fell. Remember this day, for strength wears many shapes." Cheers rose from the streets below, a thunder of voices carried on the wind. Ryan watched from the window, the sound echoing through the ship. He felt a quiet pride but also a deep tiredness. The long night of battle finally settled into his bones. Serica came to stand beside him. "You have no army here, no power, no promise of reward," she said softly. "Yet you gave everything. Why?" Ryan looked out at the brightening sky. "Because it was right," he said. "That's enough." For a long moment they stood in silence, watching the sun pour light over the reborn city. Later, when the ship landed on the palace platform, crowds filled the square below. Anoran citizens bowed as Serica stepped out with Ryan at her side. The storm clouds were gone, replaced by a clear blue sky. Serica raised her hand to the people. "This is Captain Ryan Hale of Earth," she announced. "He is a friend of the Anoran Empire. Let every star system know, humans are not weak. They are our allies, our equals, and our brothers and sisters in the long night." The crowd erupted in cheers that rolled like distant thunder across the steel city. Ryan felt the sound vibrate through him. He met Serica's gaze and saw respect, gratitude, and something more, a bond forged in fire. The Empress leaned close enough that only he could hear. "You will always have a place here, Captain," she whispered. Ryan gave a small, tired smile. "Good to know," he said. "But for now, maybe just a hot meal and a little sleep." Serica laughed softly, the sound like the first clear note of dawn. Above them, the twin suns climbed higher, their light shining on a new alliance, an empire and a single human who had proved that courage, not species, defines true strength.